Let's go retro! Welcome to Pegwarmers, I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys. Today, we're talking about RetroCon 2025. Last week, I put up my episode, What Did You Buy at RetroCon, where Chris Long and I were out in the lobby area of the convention center asking people what their favorite purchase of the con was. Love doing those episodes, lots of fun, getting to see people's hauls. And today, I'm going to talk about my experience at RetroCon as well as my haul. RetroCon is put on by my friends Rose and Tony. They do an awesome job every year lining up a showroom full of vendors, a great lineup of guests, special events to happen throughout the days of the show. And I always go out on Friday to help a little bit with setup. Friday late morning, I get to the Greater Philly Expo Center in Oaks, Pennsylvania. Hall A is where they host RetroCon for the past couple of years. And when I get there, it is a massive room full of tables set up in rows. There's some pipe and drape decorations, but this is not a convention yet. This is an empty room. And throughout Friday, the vendors come in and start setting up their booths. The different celebrity vehicles get brought in and parked in their spots, like the 66 Batmobile and the A-Team van and the Chips motorcycle. And it really starts to look like a convention. Early on, as one of the booths near where I was working at the registration table was setting up, they had an inflatable Smurf. And it really got me thinking, man, we had a lot of inflatable toys in the 80s. You don't see that much anymore unless it's a pull toy. But when I was a kid, there was a lot of like punching bags and just like inflatable like Easter bunnies and things like that. What happened to that? We don't do those anymore? Does that not entertain kids anymore? Periodically, I'd get to, walk around a little bit and check on things or see, my friends that were setting up. And my friend Will, who I bought the Men in Black van from a few months back before we did the Men in Black episode, he had a Men in Black roleplay set. Maybe he had it then and I didn't see it, or he didn't bring it to the show that I bought the van at. But man, that would have been a great set to have for the Men in Black episode. I love how it's got the little cricket and the neuralizer and everything. Super cool. There was a bin of action figures with a sign that said 25 cents each. And it just kind of grabbed my attention because when do you see things for 25 cents anymore? And then I look in there and who's in there? Ultimate Pegwarmer, Rose Tico. So the Smurf was over this direction. In the other direction, a booth that I could see pretty well from the registration table had a crazy-looking Alf costume. And I actually had just recently seen an Alf, like a screenshot from Marketplace. Somebody had posted of this Alf costume that I had sent to Mike Bro. And I wonder if this is the same costume. This was like in its box and everything. A little bit scary, but would be a cool thing for Mike Bro to have in his collection or to have a kid or somebody run around, chase Mike Bro with it.
What do you need to know? Because, I've been walking around RetroCon all day today looking for cats. Nobody's been giving me a cat.
As the day stretched on and the con was getting closer to being set up, eventually one of the vendors ran into a problem. His U-Haul truck battery had died, so I guess he left the dome light on or something while he was unloading. And he came up front looking for jumper cables, so I had to pull my truck in on the showroom floor. Got to park right by the 66 Batmobile and near a screen-used Knight Rider car. And I jumped his truck and got him out of there. But I did get a fun post about it. I would have washed my truck if I knew it was going to be on the showroom floor. And towards the end of Friday, Justin Silverman swung by. He was actually dropping off the camera and mic setup I used for the What Did You Buy episode. And he took a quick walk around, although a lot of the vendors had already covered their tables and had left. But there were still some people setting up. And he picked up a Spider-Man toilet seat. Justin is always good for finding one of the weirdest things for sale at a convention. The next morning rolls around. We're there super early, like 6 a.m., so vendors can continue to come in and set up their tables. A lot of the vendors that only have one table, may set up on the just Saturday morning because they didn't need time to set up a big elaborate booth with, 3 or 4 or 5 tables. So once that was done, it was time to do pre-registration. I've been doing pre-registration with Mike Bro for years, and Chris Long from Long's Toys recently started helping out. There's some other people on that shift, and the line builds up outside the convention center, starts wrapping around. And so what we've done to try to make sure we get that line in really quick is we actually go outside and start checking people in and handing them badges before 9 a.m., and then when it gets real close, like 8:55, we come back inside, and then at 9, we can let a huge portion of that line just straight in, and then wherever we were in the line, 3/4 of the way back through the line, when they walk up at maybe 9:05, right as the front part of the line went in, we start checking them in and handing out their badges. And by 9:20, we had all the pre-registrants in the building and enjoying the convention, which was awesome. After pre-reg, Chris and I were going to walk around and check out the con, but I did want to go back and see how the celeb lines looked, so I went to the back. Joey Kramer had a few people at his booth, but then as I looked down the row, man, it was mobbed. So I know the Chips guys and the other celebrities that were there were busy. So Chris and I began walking up and down the rows looking for cool stuff. I saw a cool spot phone. Do you guys remember the 7-Up mascot? He even had his own video game for a while. This is when like the Twizzlers mouths were popular and the California Raisins, the Noid. What an era for mascots and licensed merchandise we had in the 80s. One of the booths was like Play Set Heaven. They had the Fortress of Fang and the Terradrome and the Crystal Castle and Snake Mountain, and just a whole line of them. It was awesome to see. Another vendor that I thought was really neat, something different. I don't have the wall space for it, but if you only collected a small subset, or you had a favorite subset of a team, or you really wanted all your action figures really nicely on display, they sold shadow boxes made for action figures. They had this Echo Warrior one, they had a Star Wars one, a couple other sub-teams, I think, from G.I. Joe. Really nice looking setups. This Patrick Warburton the Tick talking figure cracked me up. What a caricature look this thing has. Spoon. After we had been up and down a few rows, then we swung back to the back again, peek at the celebrity lines, just kind of making sure that didn't get out of control with like Nate, one of the guys that helped set up, put like tape lines like the maze to kind of corral the lines a little bit, and so I wanted to check up on that again and see how that was working out. We found Rose at Bruce Boxleitner's table while we were back there, and Austin St. John was showing a little Power Ranger some Power Sword moves. At some point I was back out in the lobby again, and there was a Joe fan showing another Joe fan the amazing collection of vehicle shells he got for a killer deal. I bet if he just went through and took the parts off of those shells, whatever was easily removable, he could probably flip that stuff and make a profit on what he paid for that box of shells. Then we went to Bruce Boxleitner's panel.
Hello. My very first, very important question, how are you enjoying RetroCon?
I'm enjoying this a great deal. I couldn't be more retro, so I guess I'm in the right place.
Chris is a big Bruce fan. He is from Babylon 5, and he played Tron in the movie Tron. One of his big things was, if you're a Tron fan, you got to go see Tron Ares. He's not in it, but he said if people don't go see Ares, they won't make more Tron. So he was very complimentary of that, even though he kept saying he'll never work for Disney again because he doesn't always toe the party line. Chris asked Bruce a question and got it answered, so I thought that was kind of cool.
You said you kind of divorced yourself from it, but if Ares takes off and there are more movies and more shows, would you be opening to return, whether in person or for a voice acting role?
Oh, certainly. It wasn't that. It was just that I was constantly, I have no idea with social media and everything, I was constantly being peppered with questions about this. I don't mind answering them now, because I've had enough time away from it all. I had one time I got quoted as saying, I'm done with Tron. Well, somebody put that out there. Bruce Boxleitner says he's done with Tron. Hollywood said, so what? They didn't care because they were done with Tron too. I'm telling you, there's a love-hate relationship with it. Legacy made only $444 million. You gotta remember, $250 million was just for publicity alone. You have to make double that to even garner a sequel. You have to make much more than that. That was worldwide. We were just shy of 500 million, okay? So, to me, that's not chump change, okay? That's big money, but in that world, it just didn't quite hit the mark.
At some point, we ended up at Ben Leach's booth. Ben, his sister Amy, and his brother-in-law Will, some of my favorite toy vendor people. I pretty much always find something from them, some years more than others. And Ben looked at me and immediately said, "Kevin, you like weird G.I. Joe merch, don't you?" And I was like, "Of course I do." And he hands me this Frisbee. It was $5, which I was happy to pay. The sticker on it's a little bit worn. But, you know, a paper sticker on a Frisbee, those kind of things don't hold up well anyway. It'd be like if the edge of the Frisbee was a little bit scratched up, you know, that is what you expect with a little bit of use. But this has General Hawk from the, like, Talking Commandos series, the ones where they had the backpacks that said phrases. He did appear like this in the Deke cartoon a little bit, but it's certainly not a popular rendition of Hawk, and certainly not really from an era where they was making nearly as much licensed merchandise as they were in the earlier parts of G.I. Joe. So this was a big buy for me. I was super happy to get this. Ben also had the Dino Riders Brontosaurus and a bunch of parts for it there. What a really rare piece. That's one of the great things about RetroCon. You see so much incredible stuff there. My buddy Al from Wax Toys, another vendor that I've been friends with for years, he decided to try to quiz me. He had 5 toys he wanted me to identify, and I got 4 out of the 5. He was very proud of the fact that he stumped me. There was a little generic man in like a blue jumpsuit, and I did not recognize it. And later that day, as I walked around, I saw that little blue man baggied with Ultraman Great from the Ultraman Towards the Future series toy line, which I love. It's actually a toy line I would love to complete and do an episode on. And I didn't realize that Ultraman, or I didn't remember that Ultraman came with a little guy, and that blue jumpsuit guy is, Ultraman before he changes. So kind of like the Power Rangers morph. Ultraman, the regular person, has a capsule that he turns into the giant Ultraman. And I had no idea that was the figure that went with it. I probably have that figure in a green jumpsuit from the playset from that line. I never had really any of those toys new in box except for the City as a kid. And I got the City much later, new in box. But so I've had that Ultraman forever, but not the little figure that goes with it. And just didn't recognize it at all. But Al did say I redeemed myself by figuring it out before the end of the convention day. Next to Al's booth, his buddy Jim Martello was set up, and I bought a James Bond Jr. lunchbox off Jim. Now, I have been talking about James Bond Jr. on this channel off and on for a while. I've been trying to finish this line. I really want to do an episode about the line, and so having some of the other licensed products would be kind of nice, and this lunchbox is in flawless condition with this sticker here. When you open it up, it has the thermos, and look, it still has the tag on it. This was never used. Paperwork inside and everything. So that was kind of fun to pick up. I really have kind of been cutting back on collecting lunch boxes. I have a whole bunch there. You can't really see them. They're actually all behind me here. You might be able to see a couple of them here and there when I do shots. But I don't have a lot of space there, so I have been kind of cutting back on it. But because I do definitely want to do a James Bond Jr. episode at some point, I decided to grab the lunchbox. As Chris and I were walking around, there were some Masters of the Universe figures bagged. And this one caught my eye. It was like a beater man-at-arms, and the paint was worn off his helmet, and he looked like he had like a big brain, like the leader from Incredible Hulk. The picture I snapped real quick on my phone through the plastic bag doesn't do it justice for what I saw at a quick glance, but hopefully you can kind of get the idea. If you are a truly longtime fan of this channel, you may remember in the early days of SEO Toy Review, I had a co-host named Heather. She's actually in the first 5 episodes of SEO Toy Review before I appeared in week 2, even though we were working on the show together. And then we did a lot of stuff together.
Come on, Kevin, you're not a Jedi.
Heather was at RetroCon. She's always at RetroCon. Her husband Paul is a vendor there, and she walks around and does some shopping. She brought me a little gift from her brother. There is a odd Facebook Messenger chat that I'm on called the Crab Chat, and we send each other stories about crabs and pictures about crabs and sometimes trains. And her brother got everybody a little magnetic crab that can hold like a business card or a little sign. So I need to get a little, maybe a little Pegwarmers card for him to hold over his head and put him down here in the basement somewhere. But she also grabbed this for me from a flea market. She was walking around with her brothers, a He-Man coloring book. And when she found this, she opened up to a random page at the flea market. Let's see if I can find this here. And she just started cracking up, and that was really the reason she bought it for me. Some pages are nicely colored. But when she found this at the flea market and flipped it open, this is what she flipped open to. And it seems like somebody had a little bit of an obsession, perhaps, with genitalia here. They all seem to have pecs and something else circled or drawn on here. There's more than one page like that, but that one happened to be the one she opened to, and she was cracking up. So Heather grabbed this for me and handed it to me at RetroCon with the little crab guy. I was also gifted a Jar Jar Binks coloring book, Jar Jar's Coloring Fun from episode 1. This is mostly uncolored in, but there's one page very well colored in. And this page is a little bit internet famous, actually. So I don't know. If you know who colored this, let me know in the comments down below. So while hunting for James Bond Jr. stuff, I'm trying to complete the figure line. I am interested in the vehicles, although I don't know if I'll be able to find his car at a price point I'm willing to pay. I did find the other two vehicles from the line. This is the Subcycle and the Scum Shark. These are both sort of motorcycle-like vehicles. The Subcycle can turn into a submarine. The Scum Shark, you would think, is an underwater vehicle, but it doesn't really have a dome to it, so I don't think so. But I got the two of these, and the person wanted to sell me their loose James Bond Jr., whose action feature doesn't seem to work, although he does look pretty clean. So I got these for a pretty good price. They go a long way towards completing the collection, but I was really struggling to find a couple of the characters I've been looking for. One of the guys, Walk D Plank, is a pirate character who I see frequently at toy shows and never remember that he's a James Bond Jr. figure. I always think he's Pirates of Blackwater or something like that. And then when I am actually thinking about James Bond Jr., I'm like, oh my gosh, I saw him and didn't buy him. So I was really hoping to see him. There's also a male teenager character that's one of James Bond Jr.'s friends. And I've been looking for him. I haven't seen him anywhere. It's a small list of stuff I'm trying to look for, but I'm definitely trying to, complete that line if possible. If you're active in G.I. Joe groups on Facebook, you probably know Henry Kaufman and possibly Don Johnson. These guys are both active G.I. Joe collectors. Henry Kaufman is a parts expert, identifying accessories and things like that. They had booths next to each other. And I took Don my list of parts that I'm looking for, and he helped me out with some G.I. Joe parts I needed. I spent maybe more than I would like, but Don did give me a deal compared to what he had stuff priced on. I've known those guys for a long time. Unfortunately, I'm getting to the point where the stuff that I need is pretty rare. I got a gold machete. This goes to one of the Star Brigade Roadblock figures. I got an antenna for Red Star. This goes on his backpack. It's like a little comm radio antenna. He's the Russian figure that got released with the Cobra logo, then with a Joe logo. He's really an October Guard guy. He's an ally to the Joes. And then the parts where I really spent a little bit of money, I got Night Force Repeater's backpack. Night Force stuff is just through the roof. And I got Night Force Spearhead's Pet Bobcat Max. And I had Spearhead and Max, the regular version, as a kid. Loved them. I love the guys with pets. So I'm excited to finally have the Black Max. Really, though, did the guy dye his pet black to join Night Force? It's a little odd. My buddy Paul and his vending partner Bob were there at the show, and they bought some trading cards for dirt cheap from another vendor, and they were kind of ripping them open and cracking jokes about them to kind of kill time in between customers and things like that. And they found a Jordan rookie card in a pack of Desert Storm trading cards. So they slapped that bad boy in a case with a price tag on it and put it in their display case, and they were making jokes about it all weekend. And of course, it's not Michael Jordan, but the country of Jordan from the Middle East. This is the kind of humor, the punchy stuff that happens when you're at a con all day. Trapped at a table. You're having fun and you're doing business, but little jokes like this kind of stuff crop up when you're sort of trapped in one space with the same person for a long period of time. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. At the end of the show day Saturday, things started to wind down. There was a special VIP event with the 3 actors from Chips called Chips and Dip. So people that had bought that special VIP ticket went to the panel room. They were watching an episode of Chips, and the guys were talking about how the show was done, and they had dips and salsa and chips or whatever as like a light snack at that event. And Tony, one of the organizers of the show, had made a joke weeks ago about getting the cast of Chips to sign a chip, and they sure did. They signed a tortilla chip. It was brought to Tony. Tony and myself and a couple other guys hanging out at registration, waiting for the vendors to clear out of the vendor hall after it had been shut down from the customers. We were going back and forth about how to best preserve a chip that has been autographed. Shockingly, they didn't break this trying to sign it. Once the show had died down and the convention hall was completely, shut down and secured for the night, we headed over to Arnold's Family Fun Center. This is another facility in the same basic parking lot as the convention center. They have bowling alleys and go-karts, and there's a bar and like a concert space over there. Most recent years we've had the Cybertronic Spree over there. This year, a Star Wars themed band, Galactic Empire, was booked. Tony and Chris and I went and got some dinner over there, hanging out, talking with a bunch of different people. We were hanging out with Muppet Stuff and Retro Rest Stop. Those guys have been friends for years. They do a lot of vlogging and thrift store videos together. Justin Silverman swung back over to the convention to check out the band. So we had a good time hanging out, getting to decompress a little bit from the show and enjoy a cool concert. Sunday morning, we're back at the convention center early, not quite as early as Saturday. Again, vendors want to get in early and spruce up their booths, maybe restock a little bit. And one of the vendors up front had a Chips motorcycle radio control car toy, and it would only do left turns, and it kind of encapsulated the vibe, that early morning trying to wake up after just being exhausted from so much walking and so much social interaction and so much, convention ongoings. If you've ever done a convention, especially where there's late night activities, you know what I'm talking about. That sort of calm before the storm where you're not quite awake, you're not quite caffeinated yet. And it's just that motorcycle going around and around. I worked the first shift again, selling tickets this time, not at pre-reg, but just, cash at the door. It's always kind of fun working pre-reg and or cash at the door. You see a lot of people that you know. You get to see a lot of the costumes as they come in. So I do always enjoy working those morning shifts. When that was over, I started walking around some. I met up with Chris and his wife for a little while, but also sometimes I got separated from them. I spent some time in the autograph line that day as well. I was absolutely shocked. There was a booth that had 3 Ninja Turtle news vans. That is a pretty rare piece. They were not all complete. They seemed like they were in like complete, couple parts, and no parts mode, but it was still pretty impressive to see 3 of them together. I also saw a really nice Imperial shuttle. That is a cool piece. I've had one of those in my collections for years, but that was something I like drooled over as a kid. Just the concept that it existed, and it was took a really long time for me to ever even see one as a kid. So Rob Paulsen and Maurice LaMarche were 2 of the guests there, very well known for being Pinky and the Brain. I have Rob Paulsen's autograph from the last time he came to RetroCon. I got him to sign a Snow Job action figure, 25th anniversary figure, and a Raphael, like reissue Playmates figure. And I thought about just getting Maurice to sign one of the reissue Egon figures from the real Ghostbusters, but I love Pinky and the Brain, and so I decided to get both of them to sign a print together. So I'll have to get a frame for this. But it was awesome getting to meet both of them and talking to both of them. Rob is such a sweetheart and does multiple voices while he's talking to you a lot of times. Maurice did the Brain voice a fair amount. Yes. And he did do Egon when I mentioned him. I mentioned Egon, and he talked as Egon for a brief second. But Rob, like the whole time you're in line, you're just listening to him do characters. Whatever people bring to get signed, he is like in that voice. But it was really cool to get to meet them. Took a little bit of time out of the day to do that. Rob had a very long line. He spent a lot of time with people. So the 2 of those ate up some time. I did jump over next to John Morton's line. After that, I jumped over to John Morton's line. He didn't have quite as many people there, but he was a late edition guest. Paul Williams had to cancel, and they brought in Keith Coogan and John Morton. John was an astronaut in Superman 2 that gets killed by the Kryptonians on the moon, but he was also Dak, Luke's gunner on the planet of Hoth. Dak shoots the harpoon, but Dak also gets shot and doesn't make it out of the AT-AT, or doesn't make it out of the snowspeeder before it gets stepped on by the AT-AT. I picked this print that had both him and Mark Hamill on it, and John said, "Oh, I'll sign it over here, leave space in case you get Mark's autograph." Somehow I don't think that's ever going to happen, but I thought this was kind of a fun shot. He had other ones where it was him like more in the cockpit, more head-on shots of him, but he also had Boba Fett prints because he wore the Boba Fett armor for the scene where outside Han Solo's torture chamber, Fett and Vader are talking about the "pray I don't alter the deal again." So it was nice getting to meet him. I love getting to meet the various people that worked on Star Wars. It meant so much to me as a kid. Absolutely one of my favorite franchises my entire life. And a lot of those guys are getting up there. I got to meet Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca, before he passed away. I got to meet Jeremy Bullock, who was the primary Boba Fett actor before he passed away. And so I just didn't want to pass up that opportunity, even if Dak has far less screen time and is far less remembered character. I couldn't pass up the opportunity since he was there. Also went down the row a little bit further to Joey Kramer, the kid from Flight of the Navigator. I got him to sign my DVD. He had all kinds of stories to tell. I didn't go out to dinner with the crew at the end of the show, but Joey did join the kind of the cleanup crew, the core people that help set up the convention, and they were talking about, he was telling stories about he got to go to the set of Pee-wee's Playhouse. That would have been a fun story to get to hear, but he was nice to meet, and he signed a Crunch bar for Tony at the end. It said saved you a crunch, because he was eating Nestle Crunches in the spaceship. And he also had a balloon animal of Max, the robot puppet thing. There was a balloon artist at the convention, and he made this cool Max, balloon puppet thing, and it had like a light inside it, so it kind of strobed. He was often holding it when he got pictures with fans, and at the end he signed that for Tony and gave it to him because he knew he wasn't going to be able to take it on the plane. What a weird year for autographs for Tony, to get things that are hard to preserve, a potato chip and a balloon animal. Another item that really stood out walking around the show floor was a pink King Kong. This kind of reminds me of the Kong figure made by Imperial. I don't know who made this one, but it was big and bright pink and just pretty obnoxious. Chris and I checked out the panel with Rob Paulsen and Maurice LaMarche. I wish I had filmed more, because I loved hearing them do the voices, but I was really trying to be in the moment. I know all the panels from RetroCon have been recorded, and most, if not all of them, have already been posted to the internet, so I'll try and put a link to Bruce and Pinky and the Brains panel in the comments down below, in case you want to see them. We did dip out for lunch for a little bit, and there was an A-Team van in the parking lot, which I thought was hilarious, because there was an A-Team van in the building. At some point while I was separated from Chris, he sent me a picture of a James Bond Jr. toy, saying, I know you were looking for this stuff. When I looked at the picture, I could tell it was my friend Dan's booth, who I had checked out earlier, and sure enough, when I went back and looked hard enough, I found IQ. I have IQ's figure already, but this one happened to have its card back and all of his accessories. I was really kind of hoping to be able to find IQ's lab coat, because it really does make him look better as a figure, even though it's not the best execution. He's got plastic white sleeves, and then he's got this vinyl lab coat, so he looks weird when it's missing. And then he comes with the rest of his accessories here. He has a hidden boxing glove that pops out with an action feature from under his coat. And again, that looks weird when you don't have the actual lab coat. So I have that missile launcher and the boxing glove. There's also a little red screen thing. I think it helps you read the stats on the backs of the card backs. I don't know if every character came with one of those or just IQ. Probably everybody did. But I can't remember. I think I've only ever opened one carded figure before. I wonder if he came with glasses. I don't see those in here. His artwork definitely has glasses, but the toy does not. I'll have to look into that and see. Maybe he's not complete, but he's far more complete than the one I had. And again, another step towards completing the James Bond Jr. line. And my friend Paul had some pretty choice Thundercats figures for sale at the show. I knew he would give me a deal on them, so I didn't want to, grab stuff early in the show that he could sell for big money. He had the female Burble, who I needed, that sold. He had Mongor, or whatever his name is, the goat guy with his sickle, and that sold. But towards the end of the show, he still had Captain Shiner, who is one of the figures I need, with his gun. So I bought him. And Paul said that several people offered to buy just the gun off of him, and he wasn't going to break up the set. And the only way he was going to sell the gun was for the total cost of the guy and the figure, because he knew it would be harder to sell Shiner without it. He's not a super popular character. He's not super interesting looking compared to a lot of them. So, he's sort of a lesser known figure. But I was happy to be able to get him and add him to my Vintage Thundercats collection, because that's definitely a collection that I've slowed down on. I have most of it, and the stuff that I do need is very expensive. So I was excited to be able to bring at least one figure home. The day at RetroCon wound down. We cleaned up the hall. The vendors packed up their stuff. And I had to head home because I had work the next day. But RetroCon is my favorite convention of the year. I always have a great time. There's so many people there that I'm friends with. I didn't mention Chris Lamont or Ed Rents. These guys are other vendors that have been friends with for years. Tons of people. This year, I had more people come up to me and say, hey, I watch your show, than ever before, and that is phenomenal. I think next year I need to try and take pictures with everybody that comes up and talks to me about the show, so I can add it to a segment in this episode, because it's very satisfying to have people, tell you, hey, I watch your content, I enjoy your stuff, what you make. It's always neat, especially if people, mention an episode that they liked the most, or, what they collect. I was talking to a guy who collects G.I. Joe predominantly, that watches the show. It's great. It really does make my day, makes it feel like the effort in putting the content together is worth it there. The view count or subscriber count is one thing, but actually, meeting somebody who's watching it really does mean a lot. Obviously, I've been wearing my Game Chaser shirt for this episode. I probably normally would have worn a RetroCon shirt, but Billy from the Game Chasers passed away. I met Billy several times. I'm not going to try and claim that we were best buddies or something like that. Actually, I'm far closer to Jay than Billy, but Billy was a nice guy. He was always very entertaining to be around. and he's going to be missed. I really, I feel terrible for his wife and his son, and that whole crew of internet creators that are his close pocket of friends. Jay and Eric and all the retroware guys like Pixel Dan that knew Billy for absolutely years and spent way more time with him than I ever did. Billy was a class act and a great entertainer, and he's going to be missed. Do me a favor, hit the like button, let YouTube know this is quality content. Hit subscribe if you haven't done so. Share this video with a toy collecting friend. If you want to support the channel further, consider joining us on Patreon. But most of all, thanks for hanging on the peg with me.